welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As always, I am joined with Nathan, and we are back after the international break to discuss just how good at football Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough side are. That click seems to have quite evidently finally happened. And I mean, these podcasts, Nathan, they're just a joy to record, aren't they, really? 15 goals in the space of 3 games. We had to wait after that demolition job on Luton to get more Carrick ball. The international break finally done and dusted. And then you just get whatever you want to call yesterday. You were there. You even linked up with Ryan Giles on the way home and try to get a bit of a negotiation on the go. We'll obviously touch on that a little bit later. But I mean, firstly, given that you were there, how was the day?
Yeah, it was class. Absolutely fantastic day out. Yeah, getting up at the crack of dawn again at the end of a international break to go and follow Boro miles down the country, 500-mile round trip. Up at 6 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, travelling through snow, wind, rain, and whatever other weather has come with the storm that's hit the UK this week, and just watching Boro steamroll Oxford as if they were just a Sunday League team in the end. Fantastic day out. Fantastic day out. And 3 out of 3 now. I said at the end of last podcast, we needed to keep it up following a run. And I'm going to be honest, going down there yesterday, you've got a lot of time to think about what's going to happen in the game. And you're fearing the worst. You're thinking, could it be another derby where it's just not our day and we give them up an easy goal and we just can't break them down? And there's that optimism as you're travelling down there that is, we are free scoring at the minute. Can we continue it? We've had 2 weeks off, but can we follow it up, follow Luton up with a win at Oxford? And we did that perfectly. Fantastic.
Yeah, we absolutely did. And to be honest, like you touched on, really, that you have, because of the international break, you have a lot of time. And once kind of the initial week of the international break's gone and it gets into the second week of it, you sort of, the attention shifts to what's to come rather than what's kind of been and gone. And don't get me wrong, it was a great game to go into the national break on. But then, of course, as you say, and when you also factor in, of course, the injury front and kind of the news that we'd had going into, which obviously we'll touch on now, the fact that Aidan Morris didn't play in any of the USA games due to a sprained knee. The actual sort of extent on the sprain or how long he's going to be out for, we're still yet to know, really. Hayden Hackney, then, we didn't really get any kind of official statement, of course, but everyone was quite quick to realise that he'd pulled out of the squad or wasn't in England's squad when their team come out. Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're just thinking, why, yet again, when things are just starting to turn in the right direction, have we been plagued with this curse of really important players picking up injuries at the worst possible time, right before you get into the thick of the Christmas and winter fixtures in the Championship? Thankfully, in terms of the sprained knee, although we don't really know a timescale, Carrick's been quite tight-lipped on it. When you just, anytime a knee is mentioned, I think you just basically go to panic stations. And judging from the press conference, I don't know how you felt, but I think if it was going to be like a really long-term one, and don't get me wrong, he's going to be a huge miss even for the period that he's out, but it didn't seem like Carrick was massively alarmed. I hope I haven't just put the kiss of death on that, by the way.
Yeah, I'd seen a couple of things saying that it'd perhaps only be a couple of weeks, which, look, if it's a couple of weeks to a month, then okay, it's not ideal, but you'll have to deal with that. And then on Hackney, it appears that he'll be sort of in and around it in the next week or so, which is good, really important. Yeah, bit of a kicker. And yeah, as you sort of prepare yourself with that news, heading down to Oxford on Saturday morning, it sort of comes apparent on social media that Seny Dieng's also not travelled with the squad because he's ill on his birthday. So yeah, a funny one. Three P starters from the last game against Luton out injured. Yeah, just one of them things, and you think, yeah, it might not be our day then, as you're travelling down there. Yeah, I was sort of a little bit skeptical, but at the same time, still very sort of full of faith in Johnny House and Dan Barlaser to do a job in midfield. And also, once hearing the DN news that it'd be Solbrin's league debut, sort of just hoping that it'd be one of those days where he had a blinder. And I think that he had a pretty good game yesterday as well. So really good, really good in the end.
Yeah, yesterday was one of those afternoons where really, other than the two goals, you just you can't fight even the most negative of Middlesbrough fans. You'd be really, really, really hard pressed to find negatives to pick out of yesterday. And of course, there's absolutely none, or at least any of the small negatives. We're not going to be talking about them. We're going to be talking about how good we are. In terms of the injury front, obviously there was the bonus in the fact that Neto was back in the team. Perhaps a little bit harsh on Anthony Dijksteel, but I think we now know Luke Ayling through his leadership qualities and what else he brings in terms of the relationship that he seems to have built up with Ben Doak. He's first choice right back, isn't he? And it does give us that extra additional bit of balance, having that natural left footer playing at left back, despite obviously us discussing last week that Luke Ayling had looked okay at left back, in fairness. And then, of course, I mean, obviously, in terms of the international break, not that it really concerns us in terms of the international team we support, but Ben Doak has just kind of hit the casuals of the football world, the non sort of inner circle of Middlesbrough, that outside of the Boro bubble, the whole world knows about Ben Doak now. Made Gvardiol of Croatia and Manchester City look, well, like you referred to earlier, a little bit like a pub player at left back. He just had him on toast, and then had a major part in the goal as well. And then I think he got man of the match in their second game, was against Poland. So given Carrick's comments and kind of the way that he sometimes does go about things, I'm not going to lie, when the team come out, I was delighted to just see he was in the team, because there was a part of me thinking, this is prime example where he'll just say, I just needed a little spell out the team. But thankfully, he played the game. And I mean, he's just brilliant, isn't he? But so are the rest of our attackers. Where do you want to start, Nathan? Because so much went right yesterday. I mean, the away kit, we won in the away kit. There's honestly a lot of the times in earlier podcasts this season, I was struggling to almost express my feelings without going overboard in terms of negativity. I'm almost feel like I'm trying to rein myself in ever so slightly, just because there's that many positives that it's almost like, surely this can't continue. Are we just going to batter everyone now for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I sort of want to maintain level-headed. The teams that we've played in this run that we've gone on, QPR, Luton, and Oxford, have all been, look, pretty poor in the games that we've played them in. I thought Oxford yesterday, going down there, that they'd offer a little bit more than they did. I thought that in the opening sort of 15 minutes or so, we controlled that. Had a couple of good chances. Their keeper made a good save from Lath across the near post. And apart from really long throws and set plays, I didn't think that they offered a whole lot, really. Obviously, they take the lead through that set play, cross to the back post. And yeah, Elliot Moore gets away from Neto Borges, squares it back across goal, and Greg Lee stood 6 yards out and puts it in the back of the net. And you just think, is this going to be one of those days where I'm stood 5 hours away from home, 250 miles away from home, in the absolute freezing cold? It's torrential rain, it's snowing back home. We are playing a team just promoted from League One, and we've gone 1-0 down to a set play. Is it going to be one of those days? And look, in the end, we sort of just got ourselves back in our rhythm, sort of just didn't let that setback get in our way or our rhythm. And yeah, we sort of just settled right back down, got ourselves back chilled out again into our own way of playing, and got ourselves back into the game. And by the end of the first half, in a flash, a 10-minute spell that almost sort of took me back to 2 seasons ago where we'd just be able to turn it on for a very short spell in a game and just rip the game away from a team. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden the game's won. And we did that yesterday. A ball turned around the corner for Doak, runs down the line, and look from the away end, you can see he sort of gets first contact on the ball, and you see him go behind the goal. A lot of people were sort of frustrated because of our view from the away end that the cross didn't actually come in play, but we didn't actually see what had happened. That he's just sort of toe poked the ball away from Moore, and I mean, look, he should have been sent off. Really,
It's
he's
an
miles away.
absolute, yeah, it's an absolute horror challenge. It is literally, never mind a red card, borderline prison sentence, to be honest. He is literally, he's out of control. Everything that basically falls into the tick box of what is a red card, it was that. And it was so reckless. I mean, I know most fullbacks that Ben Doak plays against have an absolute nightmare, but that is not the right way to go about things, because he was genuinely fortunate to stay on the pitch. And I think had it have been perhaps outside, I know this sounds ridiculous, but had it have not been inside the box and we hadn't have won a penalty, I actually think there may have been more chance that he might have got sent off. It was almost like we've given a penalty, so we're not going to send him off. But yeah, it was, I mean, obviously, of course, you're standing that away, and I have the benefit of, and I'm sure you've watched them back now, but live at the time, watching back the replays, and genuinely, amongst all of the people that I was watching the game with, it was just a collective. Well, when's he going to pull out the red card? It was just an absolutely ridiculous challenge, and thankfully, the main thing is that Ben Doak got up and was okay to continue, because I mean that is like a real sort of leg breaker situation. It was that bad. But yeah, thankfully Ben Doak continues the game. And then, as you say, very much unlike Derby, we kind of didn't panic, didn't sort of run into the same issues of just, having shots deflected or having shots blocked or not quite creating a clear cut opportunity like Derby. We get the perfect chance to go back to level terms. And the man in form, I mean, there's plenty of them, so I'll have to say his name, Emmanuel Latilaf, one of the many men in form, sticks away the penalty. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what it is, but the fact that Latilaf has always got like a long time to think about what he's going to do from a penalty, I always, and this sounds terrible because his penalty record isn't bad at all for Middlesbrough. In fact, he's only missed one, and it was in a friendly, I think. And I just never really feel confident when he's stepping up, but he slots it away, does his job, and obviously gets the first of his three on the afternoon. But yeah, it was a perfect reaction to go and one down. And I mean, from that point, just on a little sidetrack, completely random before we go into the additional goals, in terms of you being in the stadium, given that there is basically no sides, or I don't really know, I've not been to the stadium, but it's basically just, how many stands actually is there?
There's 3 stands, and so in the away end, the stand to the well, there's 3 stands, and where you're stood in the away end, to your right, there's just a scoreboard and
Yeah.
nothing else, a car park.
So my question was, given the weather conditions and everything else that was going on, how cold were you in that away end?
Well, I had 3 layers on, and like so, Boro shirt, represent hoodie, which if anyone knows what they're like baggy big hoodies,
Yeah, they're quite thick as
warm,
well. Yeah,
yeah, and my big massive puffer coat and a hat on.
yeah,
So I was all right, but the wind was coming through the side of that big gap, and the rain was coming with it. But
Yeah.
luckily, I was a little bit tucked in, so I was just
So you
sort
were a
of
bit
out.
safe.
I was out of it a little bit. But yeah, Lath stuck that penalty away, and an older bloke who you'll be able to see if you look on the MFC gallery, took his shirt off for every goal that we scored yesterday.
That, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not often that you're going to see Middlesbrough score 6 goals, but given the weather, that is an incredibly bold move. That
Yeah,
is borderline mental, actually. But if there's ever an occasion to do it, then yesterday was exactly that. We discussed men in form, the many men in form that Middlesbrough have in their front line at the moment. And it was another one of those, Finn Azaz, your love child, that sticks Boro in the lead. And I mean, we're going to be waxing lyrical about the pair of them, the little sort of connection that they've just built up over the past few games. Something has just sparked between them, which is genuinely terrifying for the rest of the championship. But yeah, it's, in fairness to Finn Azaz, it's a great finish and it's an even better celebration. No idea about the context or if it's just because it was cold, but I loved it.
yeah. Sorry, just before this, and I think it deserves massive, massive, massive credit
The
for
Solbrin save.
the Solbrin save at
Yeah.
1-1.
Yeah, in fairness, I was about to skip over that and it does deserve to be talked about because it was an absolute worldie, wasn't it?
It's a top save. We lose the ball in the middle of the pitch. They play forward into Rodriguez, who plays a really good ball down the side of, I think it's Edmondson, and then yeah, Mark Harris is onto it, and you just stood there thinking, oh, yeah, we're back in the game, and all of a sudden we're not back in it anymore. And yeah, Solbrin does really well to sort of read Harris's movement, get down, get a big paw on it, and then Clarkey as well to just sort of knock it away and buy a foul, get us out of danger. But yeah, and then the goal, as you say, top finish. I think his touch and his opening of his body as if he's going to shape and bend it in the far corner sort of sells the keeper the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, it's not right in the corner, but I think that movement from him in his first instance sort of yeah sells the keeper the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, I think the keeper's almost all of his weight is kind of, as you say, going one way, and then to actually get back across and low as well, especially. Yeah, it makes it doesn't quite fly into the corner, kind of out of reach, but as you say, because of the initial touch and the kind of body movement, I think it just basically makes it too hard for the keeper to get back over on himself.
Yeah. Obviously, the goal actually comes from a Solbrin drilling it straight into Della. And look, I don't know if it was completely intentional, but his touch past the Oxford midfielder was a joke. So I'm hoping that it was intentional.
Just in general, and I know we'll speak about kind of the real star men and the two standouts, of course. But I actually thought Bergson was fantastic yesterday. In terms of even last week when he gets a brace, or not last week rather, but against Luton when he gets a brace, his best performance in the Middlesbrough shirt by a country mile for me. His ball carrying, I thought he got us up the pitch really well. He was involved in the third as well, where he does really well to kind of nick it into the path of Azaz. And just in general, his decision making, I don't know if it's something that has consciously been worked on from the coaching staff or Carrick or whoever individual coaches that we might have. But how many times early on this season when he had a little bit of a run in the team, did he cut in from the left, try and have a shot, and it was blocked? I don't think I've seen him do that now for 2 games. And that is, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that is a really promising sign for me because you see the size of him. He literally, when he gets into kind of full flow, he just kind of not the very different players and they have different skill sets, but very much in the mold of Morgan Rogers, where if he gets his arm out, then he's not being knocked off the ball. And as I say, his ball carrying, especially yesterday, and just in general, his work rate. I know it's like sometimes a bit of like an underrated sort of, you can't put a stat on it, but given we had a little bit of a laugh and a joke about Bergsorg and his ego, he works really hard for the team, and genuinely, it seems like he's kind of built this really strong relationship with Latte Laugh as well. I'm not going to lie, as much as I love Riley McGree, again, on Wednesday night, I think it'll be Bergsorg again, and he absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, he was really, really good yesterday. Even at 0-0, there was an instance where we tried to play quick, and he sort of just drove from almost the edge of our own box up the pitch and took on an Oxford defender and took him all the way up the line and took us into the opposition box. He was fantastic. Yeah, as you mentioned, his ball carrying was really important. And there was a moment in the second half as well where we were on a breakaway, and I think it was Azaz carrying the ball at the time, and ahead of him, and it was absolutely frightening, was Lath up the middle, Bergsorg up the left, and Dork up the right. And I was just watching them run thinking, holy shit, it is like the Red Arrows. It was incredible. All of them in full flight. It was ridiculous. But yeah, great finish by Azaz, as you said, and the celebration was hilarious as well. As you said, you don't know where it's come from. He actually did it for Plymouth last year as well, at this time last year, which I'd seen, having watched lots of highlights of him. And then yeah, 2 became 3 very quickly. As you said, Bergzog plays a part. Dork actually triggers the press in this one, sort of nicks a deflection off a ball from their fullback into Bergzorg, who wins the 50-50, sort of like chips the ball over a lunge from Brannigan. And then yeah, Azaz's ball into Lath. And as I'm sort of seeing the pass being made from the away end, I'm looking directly across at that linesman thinking it's probably tight.
Yeah, I must admit, I was just waiting for the flag to go up. There was almost where I was watching it, there was like a complete delayed reaction. Everyone was like, I don't want to celebrate because, you know, the flag is going to go up. And actually, when you watch the replay back again, it is tight, but it's not kind of, you know, one of them where the arrows, the lines rather, would have been coming out in VAR for sort of 15 minutes at a time or however long they usually take. You know, he's quite clearly onside. And at that point, when that went in, again, I said it, well, you touched on it and I touched on it last podcast, where you almost felt for the first time, or since Luton, sorry, it was like we have it within us now where we can just snatch a game away from someone. It was just in the blink of an eye, as you say, 2 went to 3. And it was kind of just like, and we've been scored by 3 this season, but I don't know, it might, I hope it's not just a very, very good purple patch. I don't think it is, but it was, yeah, it was a weird one when that went in, because it was just like, bang, we've arrived, and that's kind of that now.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. There obviously was the littlest bit of pessimism in me that thinks, yeah, look, we went to Norwich the other week and it all fell apart in the end. But at 3-1, you're thinking, yeah, this is probably game up. I can't see us conceding 3 to these, as mentioned at the start. Set plays really were all that affected us in that first half. And yeah, going into the break felt sort of really confident, really assured that we'd go on and see the game out and probably score a couple more in that second half.
Into the second half, Nathan, and well, it was that duo again, wasn't it? And for me, possibly looking at the best goal of the game here, Finn Azaz wonderfully weighted dink over the top of the back line, and Manu, he is. I made a joke to you, I think last week, perhaps. I might have even said it on the podcast. It slips me memory now, but almost to the point of kind of, where's the latter laugh from the back end of last season been hiding? They must have finally found him now, because there was not one part of me, and it was the exact same feeling I had at the back end of last season, where when Latilaf gets a chance, I just expect him to stick it in the back of the net. And it's so weird because, again, he does have, I mean, because of his pace, if he goes, there's not really any centre-half in the division that's going to be able to keep up with him. It's a phenomenal pass from Finn Azaz, but he doesn't dilly-dally, he doesn't take a touch. It's just complete instinct, a player playing with the utmost confidence, just strikes it in with his left foot, and it's just like, match ball. We might actually have the best striker in the league, the one that we all thought was going to bag 30. He's back on track now. And when that goal went in, Dom Shaw, obviously, I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast is absolutely, completely aware of who Dom Shaw is, tweeted that despite not scoring for 2 months, Emmanuel Latilaf is now, well, basically, there's only 2 players ahead of him in the Championship top goal scoring charts. And obviously, people have scored the same amount of him. But it's just ridiculous. When you were watching the Latilaf that was kind of banging the ground after missing a chance at West Brom and just looked genuinely shot of confidence, it's quite ridiculous what one goal can do for that man. Because, look, it's still, in terms of the grand scheme of things, a relatively small sample size that we've seen of him, because he's only had 1 season in English football. But I don't know if he's just one of those streaky strikers where he's going to have purple patches. I don't actually think it is that. I think he's genuinely just a very good striker, but it's like chalk and cheese the way that he takes that 3rd goal from kind of the Latilaf that you were seeing at the start of the season. It's a wonderful goal, and yeah, he's on fire again.
Yeah, it's so strange that he 2 weeks ago, when he got put through at QPR, me and you came on this podcast and spoke and said, yeah, both weren't confident. And then yesterday, as I'm stood in the away end, 3 games on, or 2.5 games on, I'm stood there as he's played through in this instance, and I'm thinking, bang goal. Like, it nailed on goal as he's played through. Instinctive finish off his left foot. It reminded me of his goal at Cardiff last year when he got played through and it was on his left foot, slightly bouncing, and he just strikes it first time really, really nicely. And then, yeah, a nice moment as he made his way over to the away end, even did like a little knee slide for us all. And yeah, he did give his ears cup as well.
That's just become his signature move now. He can do whatever he likes as far as I'm concerned. If he's banging them in like he is currently, I'm just slightly concerned though that now we're in a situation where Premier League clubs are going, oh, that was the Latilaf that we all thought was half decent in the summer, and that the bids will come rolling in January. But if you've got good players, you've got to expect it, I suppose.
You do, 100%. It's funny. Yeah, as you said there, 7 goals for the season now. Went on a very, very barren spell, and I'm looking at that list in front of me right now of the Championship top goal scorers. Borja Sainz still number 1. Manu only 4 goals behind. You'll have probably caught him up by the end of next week. Yeah, we'll wait and see. But he's on a good run at this moment in time. 3 games in a row now where he scored 5 in 3. Look, if he can put anything together like a run that he did last season where he scored 12 in 13, we're in business again. 100% with a centre forward like him. And just sort of forgetting that Oxford scored again,
Yeah.
a second goal. Okay, a little bit of our own doing in that instance. Solberry made a good save as well before that from Brannigan. But we have another centre forward who came off the bench, replaced Emmanuel Latilaf. Tommy Conway comes and plays a little bit. He drifts off that left-hand side a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say it almost seemed at certain points, and obviously, you always kind of have a different view of the game if you're watching it from screens or watching it in person. But it did seem that it was almost, he was drifting out left, but at times Bergzorg was actually more central than what Conway was. So perhaps that was something consciously that Michael Carrick has looked at and quite clearly seen, because as you say, I mean, his goal comes from that position, but even out of possession, he did seem to be kind of in that left attacking midfield or left forward role, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think having seen him a good few times now, especially in the Norwich game in the second half, he was drifting very wide in that game as well. And I think we spoke about it on that podcast that it was a little bit frustrating at times that we then work it into a crossing position and there was no one in the middle because he was on the left. But in this instance, we win the ball back again. Azaz tries to play a pass forward into Conway. It's cleared away. McGree wins a 50-50, which is really good. Just plays him in. And look, I think this was sort of an assist that he'll gladly take because Tommy Conway does a lot of work to work the opportunity. There's a lot of Oxford defenders in his way, and he sort of shuffles back inside. And it's one of those where when it's your day, everything's just going to go in for you. And he's worked himself an opportunity. And look, there's no taking away from it. It's a great strike, but it's one of those where would he even try it if you're 1 or 2-0 up?
Yeah,
From this sort of angle, yeah. With a lot of defenders in front of him, he buries it into the bottom corner. And look, still sat here with the top scorers list ahead of me, and Tommy Conway's got 6, and he's 8th on the goal scoring charts. Just immense.
it really is quite ridiculous that Middlesbrough find themselves in a position, and don't get me wrong, this is exactly what the squad was built for. It's why, to be honest, in fairness, and just on a wider point, when Morris and Hackney, and don't get me wrong, they've both had really good seasons, fantastic, Morris especially, but there was almost like a bit of a feeling or like a murmur across social media that, oh, we're going to go to pot because we don't have Morris and Hackney. And like, are we forgetting that Johnny Howson is really, really good at this level? And yeah, of course, he's aging, but as we've seen with Johnny Howson, that doesn't really count for a lot, to be honest. And in fairness to Dan Barlasser, look, he's had his moments in a Middlesbrough shirt, but in fairness to him, kind of every chance that he's got this season, I feel like he's done okay. Obviously, comes off the back of probably an added boost of confidence with the goal at QPR. And, that is, when we talk about strength and depth, it is, you look at yesterday, as you say, we're without still quite a few players that you would consider top end championship players, and we're still doing what we're doing to teams that, in fairness, I mean, Oxford, I think, had only lost once at home going into yesterday and had only conceded 5 goals at home, and we've gone and put 6 past them. It's just like, it's almost like, is someone going to like clip the fingers and I'm going to wake up for this little spell? Like, it seems ridiculous, but yeah, you can only really, and don't get me wrong, Carrick's kind of put players in, taking players out. The whole taking Laugh out the team and then putting him back in is absolutely worked, a complete masterstroke. You almost feel sorry for Tommy Conway in the fact that he, as you say, bearing in mind he was not a big money signing in terms of some of the fees that you see in the Championship these days, but there was quite a lot of expectation. Of course, there was all the comments from Bristol City fans about it's a sideways step, which is ridiculous in itself. But, he stayed within the Championship, took the risk of not extending his stay there, and, really wanted that kind of next step of his career. And he's come here with basically no promises at all that he was actually going to be a starter. And we obviously saw the experiment earlier on this season where he was playing behind Laugh, and that didn't really quite work. And then, if you remove all of the context about other players and just focus on Tommy Conway, for his first season in a Middlesbrough shirt, a lot of expectation. The return that he has currently, bearing in mind that over the last couple of games, he's had to basically make do with substitute appearances. He's having a fantastic season. and probably feels a little bit, a little bit aggrieved the fact that he's lost his place. But obviously now there's two players in the division playing ahead of him that are probably at the moment, in terms of form, arguably the best two players in the division, or certainly up there with Borja Sainz. But yeah, it's strength in depth. You've, of course, got to praise the recruitment team because they've provided the options that allow us to make changes and be able to do this. And it seems crazy. I mean, I was posing questions of you 3 podcasts ago, I think, saying, "Are we a one-man band? Are we over reliant on Ben Doak?" And don't get me wrong, again, what we touched on previously, the fact that Ben Doak is now kind of gone global. There's the added attention on him. You saw at times yesterday, Oxford tried their best to double up on him when they could, but it just creates a load of room for Finn Azaz to pick passes out. And we're getting so much joy from those types of situations at the moment that, it's a frightening thought. I mean, even we spoke about and consistently speak about over the course of last season and early on this season, and I'm probably his biggest fan, but Riley McGree sits out, and on Wednesday night, as I said earlier, I don't think, again, possibly unfair that he kind of missed out in the Luton game, but Bergsorg's come in, and you can't take him out the team, can you?
Making his own luck, as his Instagram post said.
I mean, can we just talk about it yet again? That hashtag. It is honestly, it seems like on a Saturday night after a Boro win, when he's played or been involved, it feels like a secondary celebration. Seeing the hashtag Della 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 drop is there's few better feelings like it in life, I would say, to be honest.
Yeah, and then in his sort of photo reel from the game, if you scroll along to the final photo, in which it's a photo of him and Latte Lath celebrating the goal, he's tagged on himself a fan account called Bergsorg the Goat.
I didn't actually see that, but that is unbelievable from Big Della. what what a guy, what an ego. Honestly, he's becoming like this random little cult hero amongst, well, certainly me and you. I just find him fascinating. What a fascinating character. And genuinely, again, it sounds like we're joking. He played really well yesterday, and in fairness to him, should keep his place. Of course, there was one other goal, Nathan, and I posted the goal on X last night and just basically captioned it. This is becoming quite the occurrence. And for the countless shots that Finn Azaz took prior to this kind of red hot streak that he's having, so many of those were kind of being saved or didn't quite make the correct contact with them. And then now, whether it's the additional sort of confidence that he's gained from scoring at the Riverside or just the fact things are dropping for him now, I don't know. But it almost seems like if the ball drops for Finn Azaz, maybe he's just inside the penalty area or just on the edge of the penalty area, and he has his little chop, it's a goal. That's the kind of form that he's in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he had one before that, didn't he, where he chopped in on his left foot and hit the post.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the cross comes in and it's sort of knocked away to him. And the cry from the away end was just shoot. I think at this stage, being 5 up anyway, it's just, oh, shoot, probably anything will go in at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously, he tucks this one away, curls it in that bottom corner. Yeah, he's on a really red hot streak at this moment in time, as well as Latte Lath. Everything has sort of come good all at once. And I think that, strangely enough, and it's going to sound a little bit off topic, but Ben Doak's a massive part of that, even though he was quiet-ish yesterday. Plays a part in the first goal, obviously winning you the penalty, but just occupying different players from the opposition team. frees up the space for Azaz. And when he's allowed space, and even just the extra second and a half, 2 seconds that he maybe wasn't getting at the start of the season, you're reaping the rewards now. He's becoming one of the top players in the league. If you look around the league and see what players other sides have got at the top of this division, I can't see many sides in the division that aren't taking Finn Azaz at this moment in time, or Emmanuel Elath, or Ben Doak, or George Edmondson.
I mean, yeah, it again, it's like you say, it's one of those days where everything drops for you. But even the two central defenders, I mean, we literally have an embarrassment of riches at centre half, and I know obviously there's the fitness issues there, but Edmondson, I mean, what a signing he's been. It's almost gone under the radar because you look at Doak, and that was the sort of standout deadline day signing. But I mean, deadline day in itself was kind of overclouded with the whole Vlatilaf situation. But now you're looking at that, and I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure that we are protected in the sense like we were with Sam Greenwood last season, where we've probably now got the option to go and take George Edmondson and offer him a deal and basically make him our player. And you see him on the socials with the ridiculous filters on during the week. He just seems like such a good egg, one of those perfect individuals for a dressing room. And yeah, him and Matt Clark, him and Vandenberg, him and whoever else, it is just all very rosy in the garden of Boro at the moment.
There was some absolutely outrageous chants in that away end yesterday as well. There was obviously the one that people will have seen is the Ben Doak one, the can't start a fire without a spark. Ben Doak's on fire, playing the Mackems off the park. But then there were also some other just outrageous ones. I think they were just trying to
I know what you're referring to here. Well, maybe it's not some of the more obscure ones, but we've got to touch on it. Dan Barlasser's got his first Boro song.
And he was absolutely just shocked beyond belief that it was him as well. He said on the interview today that we'd seen after the game yesterday that he said, "Are they singing my name?" Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. Once the song had started, and then I'm sort of waiting to hear whose name had been input into the song, and I heard Barlasser, I just started laughing. I thought, oh, what a funny sort of turn of events that it was Morgan Rogers last year, and now we're singing Dan Barlasser. But there was another one for Matt Clark.
I actually, this is going to be my first time hearing this. I actually haven't heard this, so go on. Hit with it, Nathan.
Matty Clark, Super Matty Clark. He's got no hair, but we don't care. Super Matty Clark.
Jesus. That must have been, despite the wind, rain, snow, sleet, whatever, a carnival atmosphere to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, weirdly enough, Nathan, I haven't even spoke to you since. So I was in Middlesbrough yesterday for a bit of a university reunion. I've come back to Newcastle today, bumped into Nathan's brother on the train, and for probably the last sort of 5 minutes of the train journey, we were basically just trying to figure out when the last time we scored 6 goals was. And I actually don't know. We've had a few 5s over the years, and even under Carrick. I remember 1-5 under Pulis against Peterborough, I want to say, in the Cup. But in terms of scoring 6, I actually don't know. Of course, you remember the Man City 8-1 game, but in terms of just 6 goals, I cannot remember. I'm sure that stat's been produced over the weekend somewhere, but I've just not seen it.
Yeah, I'm unsure really. But yeah, the away end yesterday was top. Yeah, fantastic. Very sort of strange one, little tight one. Allocation's not massive, obviously, with it only having 3 stands. But yeah, a fantastic atmosphere, and obviously the result helps. Nailing 6 goals in away from home doesn't happen pretty much ever. I think it was the first time since 1959. Mental, absolutely mental. Yeah, another 3 points on the board, and finally, for the first time this season, three in a row, and also into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it seems like at this stage of the season that, you know, there's still a lot of games to go, but even just the mental aspect of being in there, I don't know. I'm sure they would probably deny it because of the training and the way that Carrick is, but I'm sure he's had a little cheeky look at the league table last night. He's opened up his app when he's got on the bus and just had a look. I mean, just to look at the goal difference and how that's changed. And Nathan, look, before we move on in terms of the trajectory of what's to come next, and if it's anything to go by, given our goal scoring at the moment, Blackburn should be expecting 7 on Wednesday night. But given this run of form and other teams in the division, have these results now put us firmly in the conversation that actually we could probably do a little bit more than just the playoffs this season?
Right. Well, I think that having
And not it's I'm not saying that that's what we're going to achieve or that that's us now. I'm fully aware we've had many conversations. I mean, we were literally talking about, not ever to the extent where either of us said, yeah, Carrick out, but there was conversations around, if we don't go and beat Luton and QPR, then where's Carrick going to lie going into the international break only weeks ago? But you see some of the results yesterday. You see Sunderland drop points later on, and it's it's almost like, had yesterday have not happened and we'd have just won 1-0, everyone would have been just as happy or delighted. But I don't know. For so long, we were saying someone's going to take a battering, and me and you even had the conversation about what would we prefer: a string of kind of 1-0 games where you don't deserve it, but you just pick the points up, or you just go and stick 6 or 7 past someone. We're almost doing both at the moment, and it does feel like. And again, you've got to take the opposition into consideration, but the, with all of the underlying data as well earlier on this season, I don't know what it is. I couldn't put my finger on it. I honestly don't know whether it's just certain things have started hitting the back of the net that perhaps weren't, or the dynamic of the forward line. Carrick's kind of finally stumbled on what is his best forward line. I don't know. But that is, to go and beat 3 teams and stick 15 goals past them, that's the sign of a team that basically have an abundance of quality.
Yeah, yeah, and we do throughout the squad. We've just got a ridiculous number of talents in pretty much every position, and that was what the squad building was about this summer. We spoke about it. We were very confident about it. Look, we'd seen the chances being made at the start of the season, and I think from both of us at one stage, it was both a collective. It'll come. It will turn. It'll be fine.
I think you used, in fairness, credit to you, Nathan, and people that have listened to this podcast, Nathan was still firmly on board with that, because after Coventry, my mind, well, not so much after Coventry, but probably more so after Bristol City, I was at breaking point. Honestly, I thought, are we just going to be chasing the tails of the teams in the playoffs? But then, fickle or not, these 3 performances, I don't know how you possibly couldn't look at those 3 performances, regardless of how negative you are or positive, and think, okay, we might actually go and do something pretty special this season, or be there or thereabouts at least.
Yeah, look, and I'm going to be totally honest. I think that we're going to the sort of results that we've seen in the last three, where we've dished out three absolute pastings for the teams in this division. I don't think that those three will be the end of it. I think that over the next few months, there will be plenty more where that come from. I think that we will be on this podcast talking about another couple of 4s and 5s before the end of the season, because I just think that the squad has got it in them to be able to do that. I thought that anyway before QPR, that this squad has the quality to be able to go in and just rip a game away from a team and just absolutely pagger them from pillar to post. And now we've gave a few teams that. I think that the next game will test our resolve a little bit more. In Blackburn, I think they are a little bit of a bogey side, especially the Riverside, which we'll get into. But again, they're a side that have got off to a pretty good start themselves, and aren't necessarily languishing down the bottom end of the table like the other three were.
Yeah.
But we need to build as much confidence and steam that we can ahead of the next couple of games. After Blackburn and Hull, we have a mammoth week, which is Burnley, Leeds, and Millwall, which those three will give you a real indicator as to if we are really serious or not about going above the top 6. Those games will be the sort of benchmark to see where we're at, and hopefully we'll have Hayden Hackney back fit then and not suspended, by the way. George Edmondson not suspended after his stupid yellow card yesterday. After, look, it was partly the away end's fault for giving it all lays and etc. when we're just running away with the game, and then he's tried to, instead of just knocking the ball up the channel,
Try to pull out the Cruyff, hasn't he?
pulled out the Cruyff, and the lad's read it, and he's just dragged him down, and now he's one yellow card away from a suspension. The cut-off for that will be the Burnley game, so including the Burnley game, but if you get booked in that game, you miss Leeds. So fingers crossed, Chris, that we're not walking a tightrope going into that game necessarily. But yeah, we have got an option at centre half and Dale Fry being back, which is nice. Hopefully Rav won't be too far away. We did hear that he's back on the grass.
Do you know what? I've grown to hate that phrase, because back on the grass, I don't even know. You can't put a time scale on it.
No, look, you can't, because
I'm sure.
Marcus Forss was back on the grass in October. And he made his first appearance yesterday, where it was like a substantiated appearance
Yeah.
for half an hour. He made it at the end of November. So
honestly, I think if you asked him, he'd say Sammy Amiobi's back on the grass. And God knows where he is. I don't know. But in all seriousness, like you said, in terms of more of a test, and by no means am I being arrogant to the extent of saying these other 3 teams aren't a test or won't cause teams problems. The Championship doesn't work like that, unfortunately. But in terms of league table position, as you say, and quality, that if you are becoming lackadaisical, or you do take start to believe in your own hype and don't perform in a manner which is ruthless and just as kind of brilliant in the same sense, they will punish you. And Blackburn, as you say, a bit of a bogey side already, but it's going to be a different challenge. Well, very different challenge. They have a lot more quality than the 3 teams we've previously played, in my opinion. At least this season.
Yeah, 100%. And a very sort of shrewd coach in Eustace as well. His sides are difficult to play against, really difficult to break down. I said Blackburn are in the top half, 9th in the league. Quite outrageously, the one of 2 teams not to play this weekend, because they're
crazy.
Like just outrageous. But as mentioned, they are a bogey side. We haven't beaten them since 2012 at the Riverside. Since then, 7 draws and 2 defeats.
They do have one of those, and Claxon alert. I haven't looked at the stats prior to this, but one of those players that I just feel scores against Middlesbrough every time we play, Andy Vyman.
Andy Vyman. Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, but the things that I've put down are they've won 2 of the last 8. which surprised me. They won the last game, in fairness, against Cardiff away from home, 3-1, and Lewis Baker scored off the bench. Todd Cantwell also in their ranks.
Just in terms of the typical Boro element of just players in general and what sometimes can happen. One name that I've just seen, which I actually just literally forgot existed, Danny Bart, genuinely was pretty solid in his brief spell at the club. Also, of course, Ainsley Pears.
Yeah.
The exact type of figure that will produce a Simon Eastwood type goalkeeping performance.
Do you want to know what about Simon Eastwood? He was actually, when I was looking at Oxford's squad yesterday, he's still their third choice goalkeeper.
Crazy. I have honestly still got such horrific memories of how good he was in those couple of games.
Yeah, he was just ridiculous, so silly. Yeah. But yeah, and then a 2-game week, Chris, for us. 12:30 on the box on Saturday. Hull City. The arrival back into town of my best mate, Ryan Giles.
You're pals now, aren't you?
We're
Go on
pals.
then. Go on then, Nathan. For those of you that haven't already seen, and if you don't follow us on Twitter, you won't have, or Nathan on Twitter, of course, you should be following both. Nathan happened to bump into the one and only Ryan Giles in a services. I don't know which services it was, but to put this into a little bit of context, I mean, if you listen to this podcast for long enough, you know that we are die-hard Ryan Giles fans. Nathan especially. I mean, more so. If you picture my kind of love for Riley McGree, that is where he stands with Ryan Giles. And where was my look? I was sat in Swatter's car last night, got a phone call from Nathan, which I thought was a little bit strange. He sounded I was actually initially worried. It was almost like he sounded quite frantic. I thought, God, what's happened? I hope he's okay. He said, Chris, you're not going to believe it. The whole team have just pulled up at the services and I've had a photo of Ryan Giles. What did he have to say, Nathan? Go on, give us an exclusive.
Well, it was major panic stations for me. I'm going to be totally honest.
Did you flap it a little bit? Be honest.
A little bit, but only after. I
Yeah.
was all right at the time. So pretty much we pulled into the service station, and as we pulled in, a lad on our bus said, "Oh, that's the Hull bus." So I thought, fair enough. Said thinking they're either probably in the services already, or they're just not getting off. They'll be refueling or something. This was sort of near Sheffield. I'm thinking they're only 45 minutes from home, really. They're not going to be getting off. Anyway, gone in the services, got the toilet, come out the toilet, and I can hear a group of Boro fans talking, saying, "Oh, we've seen him. The other day we all got photos with him. We were saying, like, do you miss the Boro? Do you wish you were part of Carrick's team? Are you coming back in January?" And like they were saying, I was just giggling and stuff. Anyway, I'm then heading towards the service station exit. Bang, he walks in. Ryan, how you doing, mate? Please can I have a photo? Got me brother in. Then yeah, I thought it's a bit could be a bit ropey to ask for a photo when I'm nearly 23. So anyway, my brother went, get in then. So I've jumped in with him. Anyway, a little bit taller than I expected, to be fair. I think he must have had like dunks on.
Yeah.
Um, he also got Charlie Hughes to order him a caramel latte from Starbucks.
There's the exclusive that everyone was waiting for. Ryan Giles' coffee order.
Yeah, and yeah, was divine as ever. Gave him a handshake. Said, "Best of luck next week. You'll need it. Hopefully, you're not marking Dork because it'll be absolute bloodbath." But yeah, he seemed quite happy to take photos with all the Boro fans, and seemed happy to see all the Boro fans after he was an unused sub yesterday as Hull got beat away at Luton 1-0. Apparently quite apparently they were actually in the game, probably deserved something out the game. obviously didn't get anything. Hull now winless in 8. Ryan Giles on the bench, unused sub. Pull the checkbook out and give him whatever ever he wants in
I was,
January.
I was, I was waiting for it. He honestly seemed, and just because obviously I seen your photo and I think I seen another one as well, and a few just tweets, no photos, but just saying his reaction. And it does genuinely seem, and of course, you were there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but judging from everything that I've read and seen, it genuinely seems like it probably was a little bit of a pick-me-up that he potentially quite needed. Like, his confidence must be shot to bits, and seeing a load of people that still absolutely adore him and being told, please come back, we all still love you, as probably, and it sounds a little bit silly, but, you know, they are also humans, and I'm sure that it was probably a really nice moment for him as well.
And the transfer request in now. And we'll see you.
Have you not got his number? Surely you're meant to be mates now. You should have just texted him.
I just tried to be as outrageous as possible last night when I literally, the photo got taken and I rang you in a panic. Okay, it was a frantic panic because it felt like a moment.
In terms of Ryan Giles, I mean, in fairness, wonderful moment, but in terms of what we're going to come up against, he's probably not going to be playing. So what do Hull have to offer other than Ryan Giles?
Gonna be totally honest, they are just chaos, really. From everything that I've seen of them this season. First of all, from sort of tracking the media in and around Hull in the summer for any news about Giles, and seeing the sort of comments on the new style of play that the owners instilled by getting this manager in, it's just chaos apparently. Like, literally 2 defenders and just everyone else can just do what they want. Like, and look, they may have sort of changed it up a little bit from that, which I'd kind of hope that they had, but at the same time, the results aren't changing at this moment in time.
I mean, to be honest, we should as well say that they do also have a midweek game before they play us. And if
Yeah,
they get beat again, the Hull City that we play could be a very different one to potentially what it would be under the current manager.
if they think that they're going to come to the Riverside and try and play open, expansive football against this team with the red arrows up front, it's going to be a very, very, very long day to be a Hull City fan.
As you say, these 2 games feel like an opportunity to put ourselves and build ahead of steam, even more so than we already have, and build just additional momentum, confidence. And I'm not being disrespectful in that sense, but of course, Blackburn are going to offer us, you would imagine, more of a challenge than what Hull will. However, and this might come across really brash, the form that Middlesbrough are in currently, other than the likes of Sunderland, Burnley, Leeds, basically the teams at the top of the division, nothing below us. And West Brom I'd throw into that mix as well, because Corberan he's a great manager. Nothing worries me. I don't see any reason why we can't go and look. I don't think it's realistically, we're not going to go and batter every team by 4, 5, 6 goals every week, but I don't know if we've just stumbled across something. I'm brimming with confidence myself, and I just think, just from that forward line alone, regardless of what happens at the other end of the pitch, we can take games away from teams. And literally within the space of 20, 30 minutes, it's just, 3 points.
I think that 3 wins out of 3, you've got a real chance this week to follow things up really, really nicely. I think we are going to see changes, and what I imagine one of the changes will be is McGree will start on Wednesday night, I think, and I think it'll be Bergzorg when the game's more open against Hull on Saturday.
Perhaps, yeah.
That's just my opinion. I think look, it could be totally wrong, but
It's
that's one thing.
it's interesting just touching on that you do say that, because in fairness to Carrick, and we didn't really sort of bring it up. I don't know if the quotes just come out slightly later from the international break, but one thing that Carrick did sort of really allude to was the fact that, and I think I'm sure it's not the first time he's done this, but like openly and to the media said that he selected Bergzorg purely based on his skill set up against what he thought that Luton were going to do. And that element of his management is something that probably we haven't seen too much, or he hasn't spoken about at least. So it's a really great point that you make, where actually up against a different test, up against different opposition, perhaps you would expect Hull to be more open. That, as you say, Wednesday night, given he's just come back from Australia as well, and we all know the problems that usually causes, but Riley McGree may well come back into the team. It is
Yeah,
really an interesting point that you make.
yeah. I think that left hand side's really interesting, and depending on opposition, I think Bergzorg's really played himself into being that option on the left hand side. Now, in games that are more open, you go with Bergzorg because of what he can offer you. Yesterday was a real good insight into what he can offer you, and those sort of moments in that first half where we were breaking quick down that left hand side and he was carrying the ball really impressed me. Gave me a real sort of good feeling about using Bergzorg as an option in certain games. But yeah, and then defensively, I think that we may see a couple of changes. I think we will probably see Anthony Dijksteel play at least one of the games this week instead of Luke Ayling as well, by the way. I think that he may struggle to play three in a week. I even think that Ben Doak may sit one out this week. Either that or, which I was quite pleased about yesterday, and it didn't come back to obviously bite us on the backside like it did at Watford and Norwich. And that was like what everyone pointed to. It was like Ben Doak got subbed, so that was why we threw it away yesterday. Obviously gave him half an hour rest. Also, as well as our hat-trick hero up front, he'll be ready to fire some more goals in front of that south stand on Wednesday night. Do you want to know what? It's the best feeling in the world when your football team is just on fire, and I can't wait for Wednesday night already.
Just finally, we've got this like delirious part of the podcast, so I do apologise. You might have already switched off. I just wanted to say, obviously, following what we touched on at the beginning of the last podcast, the support, lovely messages that I received on X especially, I just want to say a massive thank you for anyone that listened to that 10 minutes and didn't get bored or just retweeted it, shared it. That was the main reason for it. And loads of people were sending lovely messages to me. It's not even me that's going through it. It's my dad, who's, of course, continuing to be amazing. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for anyone that sent me a message or sent their regards to my family. So thank you very much. So, Nathan, title of the podcast and your parting message: have Boro arrived?
Hopefully.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Nathan. Thanks for those of you who've watched and listened. Please do make sure to give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube, or give us a review on audio platforms. As always, thank you ever so much for listening. And that has been a very upbeat and, quite frankly, almost a bit of a silly episode of the Boropolis podcast.